Hey everyone, my name is Karen and welcome to the Health Made Simple show this week. I'm excited for this topic, the number one human diet. It's going to be an interesting one. So as per usual, I am phoning in from Perth, Australia over here. Let me know in the chat where you're from. I love seeing it every week. I know you guys write in every week where you're calling in from, but I love to see you say hi. So say hi in the chat, let me know where you're from, and I am going to get us on Facebook here so that we can share it out to some more people. Oh, yay, hi Whitney. I know I've got to come to Santa Rosa Beach one day. I so do. As soon as they let me out of Australia. Yes. Kentucky. Yes. Hi Lisa, welcome. Good to see you again. Thanks for always turning up. We love seeing you on here. So Christy from Georgia. Eric in the state of confusion, hey? Nice. Awesome. Charlotte, North Carolina. Hey, Dr. Bart.
Hello, Karen.
All right, I'm just organizing Facebook here and everybody is sharing with us where they are calling in from.
Very nice. Good. I've got my new fancy microphone once again. Yes.
I love it.
And you might notice also that I am in a new environment once again. I changed offices. This is the new studio for the time being. So different than last week.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So we have someone from Charlotte. Awesome. I've got a great topic today. I'm excited about this one. This is one of my more fun topics, if that's a right way of saying it. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about because this is probably the most, confusing thing out there when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to overall health. Is where the starting point is when it comes to diet and nutrition. So I'm excited about being able to jump in here in just a moment here. Hey Nance, how are you, hon? Good to see you. So again, so if you guys have questions tonight, make sure you dot them in the there's a chat section or a chat button down there. You guys can always click onto that and ask questions. This is a very, very interesting one, especially clinically over the last couple of years, where what to eat and nutrition and all those good questions that come up, the challenges that come up, mostly that's what we're going to cover tonight. So I'm excited. And then Karen, you let me know when we're ready to rock here.
We are ready to rock.
All right. So it means we're live. We got Facebook Live as well.
We have Facebook Live.
Sweet.
So we are ready to go. Awesome. So let me start we've got a bunch of people I see in the chat that jump on with us week after week. So that's so awesome. We love seeing you here. But for any new people who are dialing in, I'm going to just want to introduce you quickly. So Dr. Bart has been a healthcare provider for over 20 years, practicing a whole range of different modalities. We've got chiropractic, acupuncture, kinesiology, nutrition and supplementation, and functional lab testing. And he does this from his clinic, Balance Health Studio, out in beautiful Santa Rosa or Seagrove Beach, Santa Rosa, Florida. I don't know which, are they the same place?
Same place, yeah.
Same place. Yeah, Balance Health Studio there, as well as virtually with people all over the world, which is really cool. So he's also the founder of the Health Edge program, which is a health program for executives and entrepreneurs wanting to really take their health to the next level. So Dr. Bart has worked with thousands of people, as I said, all around the world, including celebrities and athletes. And so we are really lucky to be able to every week dive into some of these health topics with you. So thanks for jumping on. And tonight, as you said, I'm excited about tonight's topic.
Yes, I like this topic because I think this is the biggest bridge we can create, especially nowadays in health. And I say that because there's, I've been doing this for a long time clinically, and often I find people who want to move forward with their health are massively confused, and I get it. They're massively confused about what to eat and what not to eat. So tonight we'll do a couple things. I'm going to make sure that we clean up some of that confusion. I'll kind of explain why it's there. And to some degree, I could even be guilty of creating some of it. So I'm going to throw myself under the bus a little bit there. And then, of course, I'm going to give you the #1 diet for all human beings. And I know this kind of sounds really bold, but I promise you'll understand by the time I get done this why this is the diet for all human beings. This is the starting point. And if you can get this down, it's so easy to share and so easy to spread out. So make sure you're doing that tonight. And hello, everyone on Facebook. Love having you. Thanks for being here. And keep doing your thing. Keep spreading love. Keep sharing these out. And then, of course, I'm going to cover another part of when it comes to the #1 diet is what is the #1 or the group of deficiencies that we see right here, right now, clinically. What is the biggest deficiencies that are taking place for even that people that possibly eat really good already? Are there deficiencies? And the answer is yes, and I'll cover why and what those are. And then the bonus tonight, this will be fun. The bonus is I'm gonna make everyone listening tonight, everyone watching tonight, an expert in reading labels. So that's my bonus round for you tonight. I promise, I promise as long as we don't run out of time, but I'm gonna help everyone become an expert in reading labels tonight. This is important because if you get this down, and you're gonna see, I'm gonna simplify it, hence the Health Made Simple show. I'm gonna make it simple so we can get back to the putting our time, energy, and focus into other things than just thinking about all the time, what am I eating, etc. So we're gonna simplify and streamline it all.
Awesome. Because I think that, like you said, maybe you've contributed to some of the confusion. What to eat is really confusing for people. There's so many different sources of information out there. Labels are actually getting, they're confusing. We have I know in Australia, we released this kind of star rating on foods in supermarkets, and that made it even more confusing for people. So diets are confusing.
Yeah. So I tell you what, even for you folks out in Australia, I'm going to clean it up when it comes to reading labels. We're going to make sure you know how to do it as well. Here's the part of the challenges. And you and I were talking earlier today about all the different types of diets out there. And I was just like in my brain, I was thinking, okay, there's Weight Watchers, there's Zone Diet, there's of course paleo, and there's keto, and then there's something called the Dukan diet. There's a vegan diet. There's a carnivore diet, which polar opposite: vegan, carnivore diet. Low carb diet, Atkins diet, Weight Watchers, I think I mentioned that, and Mediterranean diet. There's all these different diets. And I think that is.
We had for a while, there's like.
Say that one again?
Oh, we had like a South Beach diet for a while.
Oh, yeah. South Beach diet.
Hundreds of diets.
Literally hundreds of diets. And I think that's where a lot of the confusion happens. And fundamentally, I'll tell you why we have so many different diets. They're often chasing one common ingredient, and that's weight loss. Yeah. So, and I get that's important for a lot of us. And I get the idea of weight loss. But today we'll dive a little bit deeper in thinking about the weight loss is more of a side effect that happens through eating healthy. I got a bunch of, you guys can see my friends here, Bob and George. Yeah. The weight loss is a side effect of the strategy that you use. But we want to get down to the #1 diet for all human beings. And listen, the confusion happens because how many times, through the course of our lives have we heard things like butter is good for you, butter is not good for you, fats are good, fats make you fat. So we'll dial that in tonight here. So I tell you, let's just dive right in. Let me dive. So the #1 meal plan, you ready? We'll get game on? All right. The #1 meal plan for all human beings, and everyone listen to this. Please pay attention to this because this is where we have to get back to. This is like almost going back to home base, back to foundations. And the challenge is that we overcomplicate nutrition. We overcomplicate health for that matter. So sometimes we just have to get back to the basics. And the #1 diet for all human beings is what I call God's Garden. The God's Garden meal plan. And I'm explaining. It's got 5 different rules to it. And you're probably not going to be able to find this on Google or anything because I literally made it up myself. But so nonetheless, yeah. So
okay, I'm going to share it up here for you so guys can see as you talk it through.
All right. So there's really, I don't know that we need science behind this nonetheless, but follow me along because this is real interesting in terms of simplicity. So the #1, the first rule in God's Garden, and just follow me. And when I give this to the little kids, we usually create a little song about this. And it goes like this. If it comes from a root, a plant, a tree, if it walks in the garden or swims in the sea, then eat it. That's the #1 thing we want to recognize. So again, I'll just say that so we have it up here. If it comes from a root, a plant, a tree, if it walks in the garden, swims in the sea, eat it. So what does that mean to us? And you can take that down for a second, Karen. what does that mean to us? So it means this, it's not that complicated. If it comes from a root, like in the ground, we should eat it. If it comes from a plant or a tree, we can eat it. What is walks in the garden? That means an animal. If an animal walks in the garden, or if it swims in the sea, that's a fish. So if it comes from a root, a plant, tree, walks in the garden, swims in the sea, then we can eat it. So that's rule number one. That's how simple that is. And I'm gonna even make all this simpler when we get to the end of it. Number two, the next rule is this. We gotta make sure our food is organic and, there's an and here, and non-GMO. They're not the same thing. Organic food should be, supposed to be, non-GMO, but non-GMO does not mean organic. So we'll go into the details of those a little bit in just a moment here. So that's rule number two. Do you have a slide for that one?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Okay. So number two, must be organic and non-GMO.
Non-GMO, and the reason being here is this. So one, when it comes to organic, there's a couple things that happens when they're non-organic. One, we know that if they're non-organic, that means you're going to get things like herbicides, pesticides, all these chemicals that are going to be possibly sprayed on it. And that crosses right into the non-GMO part here. The biggest difference between the organic and non-organic. Remember, we're talking about the best meal plan so we can be superhumans. That is always going to be our strategy. So with that being said, organic right now probably has close to 50% more nutrients and vitamins than non-organic foods do. And that's also why, you know, anyone who's going to go to a grocery store right now, we see some of these, like an orange for that matter. It's this big. And those are the non-organic ones. And they're just growing. They're bigger and bigger and bigger every year. They're manipulating how they grow them, etc. So the non-GMO means this. And here's why this is so important. So Karen, believe it or not, I am 50 years old. And I'm, you know, so I've been around this earth a little bit for this time. But the challenge with GMOs is that GMOs have only been around 16 or 17 years. So that means we did not grow up with them. So the reality is for a lot of people that are about my age or, you know, anywhere in the 10 plus or minus here, we didn't have to think about all these things. The foods weren't that processed. They didn't have GMOs back in those days. So if you have a 15-year-old, 16-year-old, 17-year-old son or younger or, you know, daughter, that means they've been growing up on foods that potentially have been GMO food their entire life. So you can pull that down as well. So this rule right here, organic and non-GMO, the biggest objections I hear from this is that it's too expensive.
Yeah.
And my challenge for you is this: is listen, cheap food is cheap, but we're talking about the number one vessel that we have in our lives, one thing that we can't give up, and that's our health. So I almost want to help people kind of reposition their view on it. And I do get it that they're more expensive because we are getting something better.
Yeah. Sure. And what about, I mean, are there some, you know, for some people it might be harder to get all their food organic. Are there some things that we should prioritize?
Yeah. Well, there's some that can, so here's the best way to think of it. If the food is very porous, like a strawberry, it can take things in from the outside very easily, that has to be organic because it pulls in those chemicals. Yeah, on the flip side of that, so if you can visualize that, if you have something like an avocado, when it's being sprayed with all the chemicals, it can fend off some of those chemicals from getting inside of the actual avocado because you don't eat the shell. So things like, you know, avocado or banana or a pineapple, if you had to choose, that would be on the side. Maybe you didn't have to get them organic. The challenge here is this. So for those of you who know me and those who've been following me for a little while, I still say it's organic because at the end of the day, we're talking about physiology. We need the nutrients. And the non-organic ones, although they may not have as many toxins, they still don't have as many nutrients. So there are some, and the way that you look, if it's got a hard outside shell that you're not eating, that inside is probably protected to some degree of all the different, you know, poisons and stuff that get in there. So that would be, so there's a list out there. And again, I'll share with you, I think they call it the Clean 15.
And the dozen.
And the Dirty Dozen. Okay, that's what it is. The Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen. So it tells you 12 foods, absolutely positively, these got to be organic. Yet I'm going to tell you, if that's your starting point, awesome. Yet in general, the number one diet for all human beings is, when it comes from a root, plant, tree, walks in garden, swims in the sea, and number two is organic and non-GMO.
Okay. So, yeah. So really, I mean, I think expensive is something that I hear the most, but as you said, this you know, getting sick is expensive. Like this stuff is like protecting us to be able to upgrade our health.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll go a little further. We can loop back around and answer any questions that anyone has. And I see some people that are kind of proactive and reactive in talking about foods here, because it's an important thing. If there's something that we miss with all this like COVID stuff going on, is that we need to put real food in our body so we can build real health. So number 3 is that the rule is, listen, it can't be processed. So, and I put this rule in there, and again, there's no real science behind these. These are just kind of Dr. Bart's made up God's Garden #1 meal plan. The reason I put that, and it still needs to be in its original form, not processed and identifiable, is because I'll have someone say, well, how about high fructose corn syrup? Isn't corn from God's garden? And so that's processed, right? But then we can now we get a little more detailed and say, well, how about something like wheat bread? Okay, or bread in general. And the challenge here is this, is that we process bread now. So for example, they actually take out the wheat germ, and then they also take out the bran. You're just left with a starch. And that's what people forget. So this is why identifiable still in its original form, as Crystal, it needs to be very, understood here. So because things like wheat used to be amazing. The wheat germ that's on the outside of the wheat itself has amazing levels of B vitamins and stuff if you get it, when it's still fresh. The challenge is we strip off the wheat germ, we strip off the bran, and you're left with just a starch. So identifiable in its original form is really good. And the number 1 here is the way I want us to start to think. We want to be like really strategic with how we're going about, creating these superhuman bodies. It's salt, okay? Salt, no doubt, comes from God's garden, but not table salt, not the iodized salt that we see, the little bright white stuff. That is stripped down and processed. There should be probably anywhere from 75 to 95 minerals in salt, and you'll find that in things like Himalayan sea salt or true like a Celtic sea salt. But that bright white stuff, that's a processed salt.
Yeah. Okay, and so what about, we're talking about these, I guess, foods to make sure, all these food rules. What about if you have allergies? Like people that have food allergies or food sensitivities, how does that fit into the rules so far?
Yeah, interesting you say that, because anyone that's in this space, or anyone that, is out there trying to eat clean, what you notice is that more and more people have more and more food allergies and food sensitivities. So it's not necessarily the food, and this is an important part that we discussed tonight. So there's nothing wrong with the foods from God's garden, but you may have a sensitivity to that. And that usually falls in 3 categories. 1, you created deficiencies. So let's just imagine, this is a little complicated, but everything in nutrition works as an enzyme. It needs all 5 of my fingers to work properly in your body. If you only have 4 of them and you're missing one, over time, these are going to start to abnormally work in the body. So you can create sensitivities and kind of allergies as a food deficiency, and then have a response to it. But really the biggest cause is from something we call leaky gut. And leaky gut happens from the primary cause. So there wasn't a lot of leaky gut, Karen, 20 years ago. Literally it came on really strong in the last 10 years. And the primary link right now, GMOs. Putting chemicals deep down into our intestines, where they literally create these little crevices in our intestines, and it creates a leaky gut. Now those foods, which is good, so you and I could be eating good foods. I run food sensitivities tests in the office all the time. It's very simple. They're at-home functional tests. You get a panel of like 100 foods. You prick your finger, put a blot, a little finger blot test, send it out in the mail, and it comes back and it gives you a list of foods that you're sensitive to. All those foods are on God's garden, but you can be sensitive to God's garden food if your body isn't functioning good. So it's not that carrots are bad, or that coconut oil is bad, or that this, that, and the other is bad. It's unfortunately sometimes we are not functioning good enough to handle that food anymore. For example, leaky gut. We often develop sensitivities to the foods we're eating a lot. And if that's you, there's a good chance that underlying all that, there's a leaky gut syndrome. And I tell you what, no doubt that's going to be a topic for us. We'll end up talking and go deep into what is leaky gut, how do we heal it? Maybe not tonight, but we'll dive deep into that.
Yeah, I think it's a topic we've got to make sure we add to our show for sure, because a lot of people have these sensitivities, and I think people don't link it to their own, the health of their own digestive system. They kind of go back, I'm going to have to take that food out forever. But that's not necessarily the case.
No, yeah, that's a great point. So the beauty is that, let's just say, I don't know, like peanut butter, which is one of my favorite foods, or at least almond butter. If you develop a sensitivity to that, it might be, if you can heal up your gut, it might only be a sensitivity that lasts 30, 60, 90 days, and then you can start to bring it back into your life. So if you have found something that you know triggers you, work on healing yourself up and then reintroducing that food, and you might find that it's perfectly fine for you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. I've seen people do that, and as I said, a lot of people just think they have to remove that food forever. So I think that's going to be a good topic. If you want us to talk about that, let us know in the chat. Okay, what's our next food rule?
The next food rule, it's kind of simple, and again, I just kind of make some of these up again. That food has to be around for at least 1,000 years. Yeah, just a long time. So it's not something that we made recently. It's not something that just came onto the market, because there's a lot of that. We come out with all these new foods that we think, oh, this is the new magical food. This is the one food that's going to do it all. So I want you to imagine that it's been on the earth and people have been using it and finding it and eating it for at least 1,000 years, which then it rolls me right into rule number 5. And this is the most important rule. And that is, if you don't know, the answer is no. So if you don't know if it comes from a root plant, tree, walks in the garden, swims in her sea, if you don't know if it does that, the answer is no. And this is where we start to take a little personal pride and personal action for it. So instead of guessing, I wonder if this is good for me, and then we put it in our mouth, which I think we've all done that. We have a set of standards. If you're like, hey, listen, if I don't know if this is good for me, I'm not going to put it into this vessel. This one shot I got at being healthy, I'm not going to kind of beat this body up. So that's why I put that on. If you don't know, the answer is no. You don't have to text me for the answer. Just go dig it up. It's real fine. When we get to, and we'll probably do it in just a little bit here, when I get you to become an expert in reading labels, Karen, you're going to know. I promise you will know. You might not always like the answer, but you will know whether or not this is on God's garden meal plan.
Yeah. And I think this is a good one. If you don't know the answer is no, because there are sometimes, and it'll be good when we go through the labels, but there are lots of crazy ingredients on ingredients lists. So you look at the back of the packet and there's something that you can't pronounce, or you can't see, you don't know what that is. And so you wonder, is this okay for me? Is this good for me? So number 5 clears that up, right? If it's one of those crazy ingredients, you don't know what it is, then the answer is no.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. And okay, so number 1, if it comes from a root, a plant, or a tree, if it walks in the garden, excuse me, or swims in the sea, eat it. Number 2, it must be organic and non-GMO. Number 3, still in original form, not processed, identifiable. Number 4, must have existed for over 1,000 years. And they don't have to have heard of it. It just has to have existed, right? It might be a new food to you, but as long as it's existed somewhere for 1,000 years. And then number 5, if you don't know, the answer is no. So there are God's Garden Meal Plan rules.
And I tell you what, for I guess anyone that registered for this, we'll shoot that out to an email for them. So let me dive into a couple foods that are probably some of the forgotten foods, quite frankly. When I do a lot of food diaries with my clients, and I look at foods they eat, for the most part, and just trust me, I think this applies to all of us. I know it applies to me. Most people are eating about 10 different foods, staple foods. I'm not talking about spices, salt, and pepper, stuff like that. And I'm being generous. Most people have 2 protein sources, chicken and fish, or we like meat and chicken. But for the most part, we have very, very narrow food selections. And that's one of the things that causes the deficiencies. But before I even go into really all the deficiencies, there's 2 food groups that we've almost just annihilated out of the human diet right now. And one's coming back a little bit, but one is almost completely gone. So if anyone here, I'll be curious if anyone here, and one of them it's organ meats. So if anyone here eats organ meats, or they grew up eating organ meats, let me know, because what I find is that I grew up with them, and I absolutely I hated Wednesday nights. It was liver night and Wednesday night, and my mom would make kidney night. There was all these different things. And I ask the parents nowadays if they've ever fed their children, or if they've ever eaten liver, and they look at me like, where would one even get liver? So most people, but I tell you, this is one of the better things that a human can put into their body, and that is organ meat. And we're one of the only cultures who've completely taken it out, still used around the world a lot. But I'll go through, there's a couple here that are really, really important. someone saying they had liver as a child, but not as an adult. And Diane, that's exactly what it was for me. I didn't have it. I started eating it again, and I'll share how I did that maybe like 6-7 years ago. But listen, so it goes like this. There's certain ones, heart, okay? So just for example, if we wanted to heal the body, we hear Hippocrates talk about, food can be thy medicine. So if you want to heal the heart, eat heart. And for many of you, you've heard of a supplement called CoQ10. The best source of CoQ10 in the world is by eating heart. The best source in the world. The best source of B vitamins, which we need, like if you have a lot of carbohydrates, sugar, alcohol, come from eating liver. So the highest source of B vitamins a person can get is by eating liver, which is ironic because for people that have issues with alcoholism, part of alcoholism is a B vitamin deficiency because it beats up the liver. So B vitamins from the liver, CoQ10 from the heart, vitamin C from the adrenal glands, that's your immune system, your stress modulation. The spleen gives you the ability to build up antibodies. Like that's something we should be talking about now with COVID. Some people are getting the viruses, but they don't develop the antibodies because their spleen isn't healthy enough. But how do we do that? We eat those organs. And what really happens, and this, and I know this topic's almost seems out there, but there's such an opportunity for us to level up our health by finding ways to get these organ meats or these desiccated organs back into our body. So each time you eat an organ meat, it gives you the DNA. And believe it or not, that animal DNA is almost identical to human DNA. But especially when it comes to organ meats, that DNA basically wakes up that organ for you. It gives life back to that organ. It's almost like you're feeding that organ directly. So that's one, Karen. We have this massive food group that we've kind of just pushed away. My favorite of those things is eating something called liverwurst. Well, now, with that being said, if you guys run out and get it, make sure it's coming from beef, not pork, and make sure, again, it's grass-fed, and it follows all the God's Garden rules here. So my favorite is liverwurst, which is liver and heart together with some sea salt. Doesn't get much better than that. Yes.
Yeah, and I'm going to have to try that now. We were talking earlier. I'm in that category of people who really don't include any organ meats in my diet at the moment. And it's not something that I've thought about. So it's good to kind of get this information and start thinking about how we can bring it back. I didn't, as a child, really be fed organ meats at all.
It's pretty fascinating. If we watch things like like National Geographic or something like that, if you're hanging out and watching TV on Saturday, and you watch like a lion, I guess a lion catches a zebra or something like that. Very interesting. In the wild, the animal who catches its prey, it opens up the belly and eats the organs first. And it literally leaves the rest of the meat for the hyenas, as if it's like a secondary, like, yuck, this is ugly, this is no good. Yeah. So that is the primary source for human fuel for generating these bodies that we have to keep our organs up to speed. We're real good at paying attention to what do I need for my muscles, like protein and stuff like that. But the inside is really where that true vitality comes from.
Yeah, no, it's super interesting. And what about if you're a vegetarian though?
Great question. Yeah. So. Yeah. Karen, clinically, it's a really, really big topic. I don't know it's a big topic, but because vegetarianism has been around for a really long time, and there's really two situations that happens, a conversation that I have with all my clients that are vegetarian or vegan. So I'm going to put those into the same category for a moment here. And it really goes like this. I'll ask them, is this a philosophy of why you're a vegetarian? Maybe they just have a true belief that they don't want to harm animals or whatever it may be. And if that is the case, I always fully respect it. I totally get that. Or is it based on physiology? Meaning that, is it based on some type of science that they've heard or seen or read that they believe that they'll actually have a healthier human body, they'll be closer to superhuman by avoiding part of God's garden? And usually 99% of the time it's because of this. Well, it was 99% of the time up until about 6 or 7 months ago when a particular documentary came out. I want to talk about it just for a second here. So with that being said, with my vegans and vegetarians, we'll talk about in just a moment. So in the end here, I'm going to talk about a particular whole food supplement that you can utilize to help restore a lot of the deficiencies that people have. And it really works as a catalyst to help wake up the body itself. So there was a documentary That was recent. And I got a lot of questions, and maybe some of the people watched it. Because I saw a lot of people put the brakes on eating animal proteins. I forget the name of it.
Yeah, Game Changers or something,
Yeah,
was it?
bingo.
Yeah, if you've seen it, let us know in the chat.
Yeah, if you guys have seen Game Changers, let us know. And the reason I'm bringing this up, and it was, there was a lot of misperceptions. There was a lot of I call it bad science. But a movie is a movie. It's documentary. They're meant to move us emotionally. But most of us in the healthcare profession say, listen, at the end of the day, human beings were built on God's garden. You can't all of a sudden just, 1900 years later, 2000 years later, decide that we're going to cut off half the garden. It doesn't work that way. So the truth of the matter is, when it comes to things like meat, which has been crucified over the years, if it's grass-fed organic meat and in proper quantity, then it can be super, super healthy for you. I'll go as far as saying that I can argue that a piece of grass-fed beef has as much or more nutrients than kale does. The key here, my dogs are playing over here. The key is that quantity. So yeah. I don't know what is out there. Yeah.
We were talking about that before, right? Like, do you need to have, is there too much? Do people need to have meat at every meal?
Yes. And that is a huge, huge misperception. I know here in the States, we grow up thinking that you need you have 3 meals, and each meal you have, large quantities of animal proteins. And when people ask me, person, am I vegetarian? No, but I'm probably eating plants and veggies 85% of the time. And there'll be plenty of days that I don't eat animal proteins, but not philosophy-wise, but more physiology, listening to my body. And when I do eat, it's going to be grass-fed burgers. I still love burgers. Like, I don't eat the bun and stuff, but there's nothing better than a good old burger. So I think that's real important. And if you are vegetarian, you're vegan, you have a strong philosophy of why you do it, awesome. And nonetheless, be smart. Allow yourself to keep being a superhuman. Don't just draw the line and cut things out. Allow yourself opportunities to bring back what you're going to be deficient in. And listen, I know people say, you can get all your proteins and collagen and B vitamins from plants. You can. You got to work a heck of a lot harder, and you got to be real specific about it. So, great question about vegetarianism and vegan, even though it falls within God's garden, but it's not as complete as God's garden.
Okay, so we were talking about organ meats as one of these foods that's kind of forgotten. The other one we were talking about earlier was root vegetables.
Yeah. So root vegetables. So Matt, what they are, and there's a link between these two, and this is really what I want to share about it tonight, because so root vegetables, I want you to think, they are roots. So there's things like, and they're popular now, but I wouldn't say that we eat them. They're popular. Ginger, carrots, beets. So I grew up, we were eating beets on a regular basis, and then I stopped eating them like I stopped eating organ meats probably for 25 years. Garlic, radishes, turmeric, sweet potatoes, turnips, all of these things. In my family, we grew up with them. My mom would just cook all this stuff, half the things I didn't want to eat, and I complained about it. Boy, would I love to have it now. So these are all root vegetables. And when I go through that list, like turnips, and people be like, oh, I heard of those. I don't know what they look like or what they taste like, but I heard of them. But like, oh, sweet potatoes. I had one last month. Awesome. When we think about ginger, we think about carrots even. Like, they're on a decline. So we think about all these root vegetables. And the reason I want to bring this up, one, they carry more minerals and trace minerals than anything above ground. And I'm going to get to the deficiencies in just a moment here, but that's a hint. The massive deficiencies in minerals and trace minerals. And we need trace minerals for multiple things. They work as a catalyst for us to bring in all the other nutrients, and they are a catalyst for us to make hormones. So you got a thyroid issue, I promise you have a trace mineral issue. Those are things like iodine even. Those are the very, very fundamentals here. But more importantly than the deficiencies here, in Chinese medicine, root vegetables and organ meats are both root foods. They ground us. They're what make us stable. They give us the energy of kind of grounding down that first and second chakra. And so things like anxiety, depression, all of those are unrooted, and those go into the opposite foods above the ground. We think about sugars and things that create high energy. Those are just the opposite of being rooted. So I know there's, and like, well, does that really matter what I eat? And the answer is yes, absolutely. The more we're able to eat root vegetables, the more grounded we become, because we're going to get more minerals that come from the earth.
Okay, awesome. So we're going to add in these good foods. What about calories? Do we have to worry about calories? That's something, people always ask.
No. So I grew up in the calorie age. I grew up in the calorie count, calorie in, calorie out. Heard it 1,000 times, and I probably even taught it, quite frankly. But the answer is absolutely no. And I want to give you an example of why. So for everyone out there, listen, and I've got clients that are still telling me, I can't believe I'm not losing weight. I only had 1,200 calories, whatever. And I said, whoa, man, just listen. A calorie is not a calorie. So for example, for everyone who still thinks calories matter, you're still looking in the back of that label. Shame on you. You won't after tonight. But if you're still looking and counting calories, here's why it does not matter. Here it goes. If I take 1,000 calories of a Snickers bar, okay, you got like a big one, right? Do you know a Snickers bar in Australia? You know what they are, right?
Yeah, we totally do.
Think of a Snickers bar, a chocolate bar, anything, 1,000 calories.
Yeah.
When I eat that 1,000 calories, that's going to skyrocket my blood sugar. When I skyrocket my blood sugar there, because I'm going to release a ton of insulin. And that insulin is going to immediately grab onto those sugars and store it as fat. That's what they do. That is what insulin does. It stores into the fat cell. Now I'm going to flip that over and say you had 1,000 calories of kale.
Yeah, you're eating a lot of kale.
That's eating a lot of kale. But nonetheless, so now we're getting into the idea of maybe I could eat all this food. Like that's how much 1,000 calories of kale would be. And I wouldn't spike my blood sugar. I wouldn't have that insulin reaction. So calories are not the same as calorie in, calorie out. You have one that down-regulates the entire system. It creates, an influx of inflammation, insulin release, etc. The other one feeds the system, brings nutrients, vitamins, and minerals into the Krebs cycle, and you actually produce energy. Two entirely different swings here. So the concept of calories, and some of the ones that make me cringe the most when people, there's a diet called like a HCG diet. Are you familiar with that one?
No, I haven't even heard of that one.
Yeah, don't look it up. It's popular. I think they do these injections with like 500 calories a day.
Oh, okay.
It's just unfortunately, all of us love quick fixes, and it can give a quick fix, but it definitely it jacks up the metabolic body. It creates all kinds of changes.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me that the same that like what you're saying, a Snickers bar would act the same in your body as kale or organ meats, or it doesn't make sense that we're saying, hey, just look at calories, but have your 1,000 calories of Snickers, and it's gonna impact your body in the same way. Like it just can't. But speaking of Snickers bars, what about sugar? Is there an amount of sugar that people can eat? Is there
Yeah, so it kind of went like this. Back in the day, first it was all about counting calories, and that's what people did. Look at them. It was two things. When we went fat-free, and that started probably back.
All about fat-free when I was.
Still to this day, people look at the labels. We are done that tonight. That game is over. So it went from fat-free to just picking up the label and looking at it. After a while, we figured out, oh, bummer. Calories, too many calories. That was the next concept to make us fat. So we went fat-free, then we went low-calorie. And then after that, it was sugar. So this was the progression here. We're gonna wipe all that stuff out. So the progression went into sugar. Still to this day, the beauty is that people recognize sugar downregulates human function. It just does. It creates inflammation in the body, breaks up, beats up the arterial wall, creates inflammation there, causes the body to make more cholesterols and blah, blah, blah. So we know, at least collectively, I think everyone knows at this point, that sugar is not good for us. But I do not want you measuring how much sugar you're taking. No. In fact, if you were going to measure anything, the only thing you would possibly measure is total carbohydrates. They're more important than total sugars. We're definitely going to do a show on this, Karen, because there's a big misperception. They can look at sugar, see 0, and then there's 40 grams of carbohydrates. Well, I tell you, those 40 grams of carbohydrates do the exact same damage as the sugar. So that'll be a show. When we dive into our keto, dive into our keto program, we'll talk about carbohydrate, sugar, and why we just put that in one category as total carbohydrates. So for everyone listening tonight, you guys are on Facebook, here on Zoom, listen, we're going to avoid counting calories. We're going to avoid avoiding foods that have fat in them, and we're also going to avoid the idea of just looking at sugars. And I'm going to give you in a moment, we're going to figure out exactly how to read a label. I promise.
Okay. Yeah. Well, should we do that? Should we have a look at a label and talk through what people are looking for?
You got a picture of a label there?
I got a picture of a label.
Okay, so, sweet. Let's do it.
Let's pull one up.
Maybe I'll put on my glasses so I can be really smart, because this gets technical. This gets technical. Yeah.
Okay, you put on your glasses. I'll find a picture. So this is a fat-free salad dressing.
You could have left the brand off. Like, yeah. just no, I'm not beating up the brand or anything. Like, all right, so you guys look at that. You see the fat, the sodium, the carbs are there, right? The fiber, trans fat, all this stuff. You can see the ingredients underneath there. Look at that. Water, then corn syrup. So I don't know if you guys can see that or not. So everything you see here, everything you've learned about looking at the fat grams, the cholesterol, the total carbs, the proteins, everything there, I want you to forget about it. I don't want you looking there anymore. So just put like a big 0 on that. Just from now on, we're not even going to pay attention. We're not even going to look at this. Yeah, bingo. Look at that. Boom. So don't even pay attention to that for just a moment. All I really want you to do is look for one thing. I want you to go immediately to where it says ingredients. So everyone follow me closely here. Glasses are coming back off. So I want you to forget looking at the label. I want you to go directly to the ingredients. And I think someone posted in the chat there, like if you can't pronounce the word real easily, don't even eat it. So I'm going to get easier than that for you. When it comes to the ingredients, you're going to look for, you're only going to eat foods that have one ingredient. Okay? And this is how simple it is. And this, I told you, that eating is it's not rocket science. We got to get back to basics. So let's just imagine here for a second that I go to the grocery store and I pick up a chicken. I pick up a chicken. I look at it. I read the ingredients and it says chicken. But that's all it should say. And then I go over here and I pick up an apple and I read the ingredients and it says apple. And then I pick up, a burger and it says beef. The point here, Karen, is this. If it has one ingredient, eat it. If it has more than one ingredient, we're leaving it alone. That means we're starting to process it. So there's a couple small caveats. You can pull that guy down. Even though that was awesome. I like that. Here's what I want. Here's what I want you to think. I saw someone just mention. I said, "Look really smart in my glasses."
Yeah, I saw that too.
I'm gonna keep them on. Yes. So here's the thing. When you look at a label, if it has one ingredient, eat it. And this is one of my favorite things to teach children when they go shopping with mom and dad. Tell them, it's like, get them on a hunt. Have them go look around. Help them help you shop. And have them go pick up their foods and look at the foods and tell them, what are the ingredients? And have them look for foods with one ingredient and almost make it like they're searching out for this special thing. But if we allow ourselves to do that, pick up a loaf of bread, look at the ingredients on the back of it. It's crazy. If you can't pronounce it, we definitely shouldn't be eating it. Now, someone will say to me, well, how about if it had carrots, beef, and onions? The answer is yes. All one ingredient type stuff. So it still fits into God's garden. So remember, God's garden, if it comes from a root, plant, tree, walks in the garden, swims in the sea, we can eat it. And it needs to be unprocessed, still identifiable. So if I looked in that package, hopefully I can recognize the carrot, the onion, and the piece of beef. So if you want to become an expert in reading labels, in a following show, we're going to get into keto, into these other diets. So a quick note to those other diets. As a clinician, so I want to give you the contrast here. I put people on vegetarian diets. I also put people on carnivore diets. Why would I do both? I'm not the same person, but why would I use both? Is it because I think one of those is better than the other? No. We use those diets as strategies when something isn't well. I'll just give you a quick example. When I think, trying to think last time I put someone on a carnivore. Okay, here's a common one. So listen, I'll take a female who has yeast and candida and I'll put them on a carnivore diet because I want them having 0 carbohydrates, 0 sugar, and I want to starve out the yeast. I want to starve out the candida. Now granted, I'm telling you, if you're going to do that, make sure you get with your practitioner so you understand the other things you need to do. But that's an example. And then I might use a vegetarian diet for someone who has all kinds of leaky gut and can't digest their food. They got gas and they got burp and they cannot break down the foods anymore. And I'll move them more toward a vegetarian diet. So we use those different diets. And you may find one. You might say, well, I do really good on a Mediterranean diet. And I understand that. And so here's the common link. If everyone hasn't figured out. So every one of those that I just mentioned, the common link for all of them, they all use God's garden as the premise.
Yeah.
So they all use whole foods, every single one of them. And that's why it's not complicated. I started off by saying it's kind of getting complicated but it's not. Nutrition is not complicated. If it is a whole food, eat it. Yeah. If it's organic, that's better off. It's non-GMO, even better. So if we put all those little categories together, that really becomes our strategy moving forward. And if you got some gut issues, which a lot of us do, then you can start to use other strategies to navigate how to get yourself back into that superhuman status.
Yeah, people make it more complicated than it has to be.
Yeah, and go ahead.
Yeah, good question here from Bobby Norris. Is it true a very lean cut of meat, like a fillet, can help lower serum cholesterol? I'm a rancher in Texas.
So I'm gonna instead of saying a lean cut of meat, don't even worry about lean. Let's fatten that sucker up as can be. Okay, take the fattest cut that you got, and the answer is if you've got yourself a good organic grass-fed cow and you take that, the answer is yes. Because here's when it comes to cholesterol, which Karen, I think next week we're going to do the 5 health myths. I love this show that we're about to do next week.
Yeah.
I'm going to tackle the 5 top health myths that are out there. We're just going to break down some walls here. So anyways, cholesterol is a huge one. Because here's the deal. If you don't eat cholesterol, your body raises it. It's that simple. So when we eat it, the good source from good grass-fed animals, yes, you can lower your bad cholesterol. I know that sounds insane. So Bobby, thanks for the question. But that's it. God's garden. Listen, cows have been around for a long time. Animals have been around for a long time. Humans have used God's garden, this earth, as basically a big old meal plan.
Yeah, awesome. The next question here is, where do you find local grass-fed organs?
Okay, so I'll tell you where I get them. There's a company I use out west called uswellnessmeats.com. That's where I get it. So I don't have any affiliation with them, so I'll just leave it at that. I'll just kind of share that with you guys. It's called uswellnessmeats.com. That's where I get my liverwurst. That's where I get my bratwurst. So there's just different things in there. Absolutely fantastic.
I wonder if you can get some things. I know, like for us, we have like at our local farmers markets, often some of the we have like all the vegetables, but we've also got like some of the farmers come down and sell like different types of meat and stuff actually at the farmers market. So I don't know. I mean, that's near me, but
no, we won't see too much of that because people don't buy it. So the biggest things right now are for animals. So when we do our dog show, which we're going to do a nutrition for dogs.
Yeah.
I'm bringing the expert of experts on, and she'll talk about how the primary thing that my dogs eat is every single meal they get some level of organ meat, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, awesome. Cool. Well, let's dive into deficiencies. Like we have so many people have so many deficiencies these days. How come we're so deficient in different vitamins and minerals?
The simplest answer is this: it's farming. That's it. This is the biggest challenge. It's not going away. So, when people ask me like, I have a really good diet. Do you think I still need to use supplements? The answer is yes. So even if you have an organic diet, Karen, I want to explain this how it goes in our country. And I'm sure it's not that, well, it might be a little bit, guys, because you have such broad, but we are over-farmed. And so this is how it goes. In our country, the typical topsoil in our country, the topsoil where the plant is growing, where the vitamins and nutrients are coming from, is about 2 inches to 2.5 inches deep. It used to be in the feet, and it takes thousands of years to get feet. So the company that I use for supplements, in fact, I'll talk about one right now in just a moment here. There's a supplement I use called Cadon. It was the first supplement here in the United States, first whole food supplement. The farms that they grow all their foods, they use real foods to make their supplements. It's 8 feet deep. That's right now, it's considered the deepest topsoil in the world. And it's up there in Wisconsin. So it's pretty fascinating. And that's where these supplements come from. That's why I'm such an advocate of, if you're going to supplement, try to get it from a source that makes sure you get all the vitamins and minerals that come from the natural or from earth. But our farming, even organic farms right now, the topsoil typically is about 2 inches deep. They're absolutely voided and deplete of the vitamins and minerals that we need. So that, for the reasons, the biggest deficiency. Hand in hand with that is poor digestion. That's a challenge for a lot of us. That some kind of leaky gut, stomach acids could be off. And then the third part probably, so I'd go from farming to poor digestion to number 3, which could be up here at number 1. It's medications.
Yeah.
So what's that?
Medications block absorption.
Yeah. So yeah, this is a rabbit hole, but I'm gonna go to the top of it and just share some things like an aspirin a day. Like aspirin inhibits vitamin C absorption. So, we've talked about vitamin C so much and know critically how important it is. And that's why you see people take vitamin C on a daily basis. They get the bruising in their hands. It's because vitamin C is needed for collagen. And if you don't have vitamin C, you don't make good collagen. So you bruise easy. So I walk around, I can spot a person a mile away who has vitamin C deficiency. So, there's these deficiencies, and a lot of them, like if you take an antacid, you block zinc, magnesium, you block calcium. These are critical for foundational health. So those are 3 of the top ones. And listen, folks, if you guys are on medications, I'm not telling anyone to jump off them. I'm telling you to think. Like, let's think. Get a good strategy going on here, and then add back in. Maybe you need to add in more than the average person because you're going to have something that's always taking them out of your body.
Okay, so what are some of the supplements we can take? What are some things we can do to help? Besides, obviously, dial in our nutrition, which comes first, and we've talked about, but on top of that.
So I'll start, before I even share which ones, there's really 3 things that across the board. Let's just say you're sitting here, you're watching tonight on Facebook or on Zoom, and you've got really good health and you're doing a lot of good things. If there was just 3 things, you said, what if the bare minimum, what should I take that are 99% chance going to be deficient? One is going to be trace minerals. Those are the foundational minerals that we need even to absorb vitamins. Then we need our vitamins. We need, every one of us needs better sources of vitamins and much more of them, because they become catalysts for us to use every system, organ, and gland in the body. Any deficiency, so imagine this is one large unit that works in harmony, right? And if we don't have harmony, if all of a sudden we have a deficiency in vitamin C for the adrenal glands are now out of harmony with the body. So we got trace minerals, we got vitamins, and then good fats. And then number 1 is what we call omega-3s. And those omega-3s are deficient because we produce so much inflammation in our bodies, you're using it. So those are my top 3. So with that being said, there's supplements that, I'll share with everyone tonight that I would say, if you want to continue to level up your health, you want to continue to kind of just dial things in, if you want, make sure you covered all the bases, you don't like taking a lot of different supplements, you don't have any particular things that need to be healed up right now, and you just want the bare bones, what you need to take, there's 3 that I would have you take. Number 1 is something called Catalin. And this is one of the things probably why I use a company called Standard Process for probably 99% of all the supplementation I do. That and their sister company called MediHerb, which is out there in Australia. I'm trying to get all my herbs. And I do that because of what I just mentioned. They have their own organic farms up in Wisconsin. I've walked up there. Well, I didn't walk up there. I've walked on those farms, and I've been there on multiple occasions, and it's absolutely fascinating, the passion and what they put into these farms. Like I said, some of their topsoil is 8 feet deep. It usually takes about 1 million years to get that deep, and that comes off the Great Lakes and all this stuff. So 8 feet relative to 2 inches in our country. So they made a supplement called Catalin. It first came out in 1929. And its design was that's when processed foods began in the 20s. They started to refine things like wheat, and they started to take the nutrients away so they could store these foods better. So this guy said, man, there's going to be a deficiency in nutrients because you're taking them all out, because nutrients can't sit on a shelf forever. So they're taking them all out so these products could stay on the shelf longer. So they said, we'll make this one supplement called Catalin, which really means catalyst, to activate and help all the good nutrients in your body work faster. So that's my number 1 that would cross the board for every adult out there. They're little brown pills. You can chew them. I don't know if they're good, but you can chew them. So here's the thing. They're whole foods: alfalfa, carrot, sweet potato, nutritional yeast. 4 different adrenal glandulars are in there. I'm sorry, 4 different glandulars. Liver for the B vitamins. So the B vitamins in this one come from liver. C vitamins come from adrenal glands. Kidney in there. What else? And then there's spleen in there. And I think I mentioned spleen earlier. So there's literally the glandular of spleen is in there. So you start to be able to have the ability to develop things like antibodies. So this is a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Now, that being said, the vitamin D's in there, vitamin A's in there. Typically, the dosing has to be a little higher. So the idea of just taking one big magic pill and you're good to go, you and I both know it doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work that way. You wouldn't take like 1 cup of, or like 1 spoon of food and be like, I'm good to go.
Yeah.
So the dosing sounds a little higher. When I first introduce people, I tell you I want to take 3 of them twice a day, just like you're going to eat. But that would cover your basis. That would, if you had, maybe you don't have a great diet, maybe you're on some medications, maybe you don't always eat organic, even if you do, that one would cover everything. That is the #1 multivitamin there is out there. But it's even more than a multivitamin because it has glandulars in it. So that's #1. And then the second is something called trace minerals with a little bit of B12. And I don't think I answered that earlier. I said, what is the #1 deficiency? There's 2 of them. Vitamin D, which is crazy because the sun can help us with that. And B12 is another deficiency that we have. And that's because it's harder to digest. Technically, what happens, there's an enzyme in our stomach. You need to have a really, really, really strong acid in your gut. Most of us don't. We use antacids. We try to get rid of the acid in our gut. But if you do not have a strong gut, if you are on an antacid, you're on a proton pump inhibitor, you're on any of those foods, you're on an aspirin a day, you do not absorb B12. It needs a very, very specific type of enzyme to break down. So that's probably, one of the most worldwide deficiencies is B12, magnesium, vitamin D. Those guys are huge right there. So that's why I recommend everyone to be on a trace mineral, a little bit of a B12. And those trace minerals, those are trace amounts. Those are things like boron and zinc and copper and iron that we're supposed to have in trace amounts, but not massive amounts. So I'll rarely give someone like a big old iron pill, even if they have an iron deficiency. We want to get it there in the way that nature provided it. And then third, if I was going to add one in there, it's just what I talk about. It's some source of omega-3s. If you've been in my clinic, you've heard me talk about omega-3. It's always cod liver oil. Cod liver oil is my absolute favorite source of fish oil. It is a fish oil. It is an omega-3. There's some that have higher and lower doses, but here's why. So cod liver oil literally comes from the liver of the fish. And what's unique about that is that it's the only source of oil that has a naturally occurring vitamin A and vitamin D. And people out there that know a little bit about nutrition, you know that those are really important vitamins for your immune system. Those are what called fat-soluble vitamins. And they are synergistic. We shouldn't take one without the other in too much of a dose. And to get vitamin A and D naturally in nature is one of the best things you can do for your immune system. So if you're locally, or if you've been, working with me for nutrition, it's 99% of the time, I recommend cod liver oil.
Okay, awesome. And I've put the link in the chat, guys. And if you're on Facebook, we'll put the link in there too. For watching our show, we always give you 20% off these supplements. So we put the link in there if you do want to get some of these supplements. And then also if somebody wants to, they might have something that they want to dive deeper with you on, or they want to, get a consultation to kind of talk through something that they're dealing with. How do they do that?
It's real simple. Just email us, or whatever you can find us at contact. Just email out to us. I do, virtual consults just like we're doing right now. We hop on, it's one-on-one, and we can do anything. But if we need to order a functional lab test, we can do that. If you just want me to review what you're currently doing and make sure they kind of get a thumbs up, that's awesome as well. So literally anywhere, not anytime, but anywhere around the nation is perfectly fine. Hey, I want to go back and just kind of add just one kind of topic to one thing to all of that. Wherever you are, the beauty is that as long as you're moving in the right direction, and I think I want to make sure that we add that in, that you don't have to all of a sudden be doing a perfect diet. But if today, leaving here on this show, you just literally start going to the grocery store and start picking foods with one ingredient, because then you're going to have to learn some things after, like, how do I make this thing taste good? Yeah. But that's also part of the process of taking that pride and passion and bringing it back home and getting a little more rooted with our food and caring about what comes into our body. So all of that's not to be forgotten as part of being healthy.
Yeah, I think that's that so needs to be said, because we don't need to go all or nothing. Like, people can take step at a time and just work towards that goal of becoming more superhuman.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So let's do a quick recap and make health simple for everyone. What action step, I mean, I guess we kind of touched on it, but what's the action step that people can really take from here today?
One ingredient. If I left you with one thing, that's all you need to know. If the food has one ingredient, eat it. And the other thing I would say is this: learn the rule as a little jingle. So it goes like this: if it comes from a root, a plant, a tree, if it walks in the garden, swims in the sea, then eat it. And teach your children that. Get that down just like that. That's all we really need to. That's our foundation when it comes to nutrition.
I love that. And if you want the God's Garden meal plan rule that we had up on the screen, make sure you're registered for the show, healthmadesimpleshow.com. If you're already registered, we're going to send that out to you straight after the show, so that you can print it out or you can have that to refer back to. So if you're not registered, healthmadesimpleshow.com, you can get registered and then we can send that out to you. So otherwise, thank you so much for jumping on with us. We hope you, I think this was an awesome topic to go over. As Dr. Bart said, next week we're going to go over the 5 nutrition myths.
Yeah, so we're going to stir it up a bit next week, because we're going to challenge some paradigms, no doubt.
Yeah, awesome. Great, guys. Well, we will see you next week. Bye for now.
That'll be awesome.